Hello everybody, how are you all doing? Thanks for joining me again on the French Cooking Academy. My name is Stefan and today we're finishing our 3-part series on how to cook and prepare a fish. On our last episode we're going to learn how to fillet the fish and serve it with a classic French sauce, which is a sauce vin blanc, aka white wine sauce. So this is a bit of an advanced level course today. To finish off, we're going to be making everything from scratch. As you can see, I've got all the ingredients, so all the details and techniques coming up. Welcome back everyone. So just before I start, I'd like to mention that on the community tab messaging system in YouTube, I've mentioned that moving forward I will be flagging down on the video titles the level of difficulty of the recipes. So we're going to have beginners, intermediate and advanced. So this is the 3rd part of the fish series and today we're making the advanced level course. Now why is it called an advanced level? Because today, as part of the exercise, like in the culinary schools, we're going to be presented with our product, raw fish, and it's a whole fish, and we're going to have to do everything ourselves from scratch to create a dish, which is fish fillet served with the famous sauce vin blanc or white wine sauce, which is a classic French sauce for fish, done just by reduction, meaning there's going to be no thickening agent, just by reducing. So the process of the whole thing is going to be learning how to cut and fillet a fish to start with, then use the bones that you're going to have here to make a fresh fish fumet, and then with that fish fumet we're going to cook the fish and then make a sauce with all this accompaniment, the white wine and everything, to finally be able to serve it. So let's get ready, get the tools, and let's get started. Now let's start our recipe. So as always, you're going to start with the mise en place or food preparation, and this is what I've done here. So of course you wash your hand first and then you go on to prepare everything. So my fish here is a flathead from Australia. You can use any round fish you want in your country. It's been scaled and gutted by the fishmonger, and I have cut all of the bards and the tails and everything like we've shown on the previous video of the trout. Is the same principle, so make sure you do that. And so we get the clean fish, and these are the ingredients on the left hand side for my sauce: tomatoes, parsley, onion, shallot. I'm going to be using butter and cream and a bit of white wine. On the right hand side, the onion, shallot, bouquet garni, carrots and mushroom trimming is going to be for the fish fumet. All the ingredients and recipe will be linked in the video description. Once our mise en place is done, the next thing to do is to fillet the fish. Now, before we do this, I'd like to warn everyone, I'm not a professional fishmonger, I'm not a professional chef, and I don't spend my time filleting fish. I'm just like you, just someone at home, trying to make some recipes. So sorry if it's not perfect. So to start the filleting, looking at different techniques, there's being taught in culinary schools and others, in other books. There's different schools or different ways of doing it. So we're going to try one way and see how it goes. Otherwise, we're going to try another method. Now, for this size of fish, these are considered a small to medium size. The smaller they are, the harder and the most difficult they are to cut, because there's not much flesh. Look at this, you see? There's not much things to cut. Okay, so the technique wants that when you have a fish like that, turn it on the side, and you have the back like this facing upwards, and you need to make an incision here by the head, and then with your knife under the skin we're going to go like that and try to follow the bone to end up having the fillet. So let's have a look and see if the technique works. So they said you need to, most of the time you need to start before that little that little fin on the side here. So we need to make an incision all the way to the bone, and to be honest, I'm not too sure how this. I'm just going to do it, okay? So I think I've hit the bone over here. Just cut the thing here. And then with your knife planted like this, we're just going to be slowly, I'm going to see what I'm doing here. Yeah, and we're going to just go and try to follow the bone. I hope I'm doing this right. And then go till the end, and hopefully there we have a fillet. So this is what you get. Okay, the next step consists of removing the skin. So again, from what most technique says. You leave the little bits on here, depends on your fish, and this is just for the flathead. And again, I'm gonna go down the skin here. I don't know if you can see, just an incision, not cutting the whole skin. Try to follow again with the knife and try to detach basically as much as I can the fillet. So these flatheads again are very difficult to work with, and they may be not the best, but it is just one of the example. And then you have it. So as you can see, I haven't done the best job. This is one of the skins I'm going to remove. And roughly speaking, you've got a fillet here. So you see little mistakes here. You can just remove with your knife the untidy bit. And I've got here a very small fillet. You see, this is where the difficulty lies. You don't have a huge piece of fish. So I've got 3 fish to do here. But you got the idea. So if it's not perfect like this, there's a little bit of skin, don't worry. You don't have to make a perfect job. You're just learning. So you can just trim off with your filleting knife all the untidy bits. And there you have it. We've got a fish fillet. All right, all done. Wow, that was a bit of an exercise. Like, I was wondering when I was asking my fishmonger to fillet my fish, he was always giving that face, and I always never understood. I was like, what is he complaining about? Well, now I understand. The filleting can be actually a bit of a work depending on the type of fish you have. Flathead here is quite bony, and it's not as easy. But the result is here. Fillet on one side, and here you've got the bone that we're going to be using for the fish fumet, and this is the next thing we're doing. And now for the fish fumet or fish stock. Now, once you've really filleted the fish and cleaned the fish and cut everything, most of the job or the difficult part of the recipe is done. And now you can kind of relax. The fish fumet is very simple, medium heat. You start with a nudge of butter, it's usually 20 grams, and you're going to melt it until it starts to foam. Once the butter is foamy, take all the garnish, so onion, shallot, carrots and mushroom trimmings. The carrots and mushroom trimming sometimes is optional, but for this recipe, so we're going to leave this to sweat for 1 or 2 minutes on a low to medium heat to start with. Next, after 1 or 2 minutes, you add all of the fish bones that have been previously cut in smaller pieces or manageable pieces, and once in, you're going to coat them gently with the carrots, the onion and the shallots. After a few minutes, immediately we're going to start pouring over some water. Now the water has to be just above, barely just above the fish bones usually, but because here we're going to make a bit of a glaze of fish stock afterwards, I'm not going to put too much liquid. So I'm doing a little bit of water and I'm going to top it up with a little bit of white wine, and that's it. I'm not going to even cover the whole thing. I'm just going to mix it like this, then add my bouquet garni in, all right, with a little bit of salt and some peppercorns. The reason I'm adding salt this time in the stock, which is something you usually don't do, it's because we're going to be using the stock immediately to make a sauce. So a little bit of salt is in order. When all the ingredients have been added, as well as the seasoning, you're going to bring this to the boil, and as soon as it reaches the boil, you're going to put the heat on low and let it simmer for 20 to 25 minutes. After 25 minutes, you're going to filter your stock using a sieve and pour it into a clean container and let it cool down totally before we can use it to cook the fish. As soon as the fish stock is cold enough, it's time to start cooking the fish. So you're going to take a pan, quite deep. I'm using like a mini stock pan, and the first thing you're going to do is to brush the bottom of your pan with a little bit of butter. Next, you're going to add a little bit of salt and pepper, and you're going to cover with your mix of shallots and onion. So a good sprinkle, don't overdo it, just enough for the fillet of fish. And finally, you're going to add a little bit of parsley as well at the bottom. Next, you take all your fish fillets, and so in my case here they're very small, and you're going to basically dispose them in your pan on top of the garnish. Try to put that there and kind of close together like that. You then add a little bit of white wine, so avoid pouring the white wine on the fillet because they could go black, they could oxidize, so on the side. So just a little bit. And you finish off by covering gently the fillet with your freshly made fish stock. And only kind of 3/4 of the way, barely. Because remember, we're going to have to reduce that, so not too much liquid. That's about it. When this is done, you're going to use one of these parchment lids, like that. Put it over and turn your heat on. Medium, and you're going to bring this to a simmer. While this is heating up gently, you're going to preheat your oven as well to 160 degrees, which is approximately about 320 degrees Fahrenheit. As soon as the boil starts, you put your heat off and you're going to put this to cook in the oven for about 5 to 7 minutes, depending on the size of your fillet. When your fish is cooked, you take your pan out of the oven here, and you're going to basically try to filter some of the cooking juices in the pan without burning yourself. And now to make the sauce vin blanc or white wine sauce. It's not a complicated sauce, but things have to happen quite quickly. So as you can see, I've got a head start here. Once you've transferred your cooking juices from your fish into your pan, the first thing you're going to do is bring it vigorously to the boil so that it reduces almost up to a glaze. So it's going to be really just a thin layer left before we can move on to the next step. So that's the first thing you're going to do. So when this is reduced heavily, as you can see, this is more the stage of a demi-glaze. I would not say a glaze, but you see it's kind of getting thick and it's really concentrated. It's now time to add some of the cream. I would not put too much cream. I think the recipes always tell you to add lots of cream and reduce it, but I don't think you really got enough time with a whole appliance to do this. So I'm going to put half the quantity that's in the recipe and see how we go. Now, interestingly, the traditional method wants us to reduce the cream by half, and I love to question some of the techniques, of the traditional, even in French cooking. And from what I can see here, the fish has been resting on the side, and I've put it back in an oven at 50 degrees Celsius, about 120 degrees Fahrenheit, because it was running the risk of getting a bit too cold. Happily, my sauce is almost done here, but for me, you know what, that technique is maybe a little bit flawed. Once your cream has reduced by half, basically, or technically, the base of the sauce vin blanc is ready. As you can see, it's nice and smooth. It's a creamy sauce and it's kind of white. So I'm going to taste it. Nice. Now it's got a nice creamy taste. Now with the, I can really fish the fish remain in the background. It's really nice. And so basically the base recipe here is actually done. But if you want to go further, you can add what I've got here, a little bit of fresh tomato. And that's going to transform the sauce vin blanc in a sauce called the Sauce Dugléré. So once you get the tomato in, you're going to gently mix them in, the tomatoes, just to give that little intonation of tomato in the sauce without coloring the sauce and make it all red. Once the tomato has been incorporated, you can turn your heat off and you put a final piece of butter to give the sauce a little bit of a shine and an additional flavor, and then we're ready to serve. So I'm going to dress up the plate and show you the result. And finally, here we are. I got a head start and actually plated that whole thing. If you want, I just did some little steamed courgette. And this is a layer of Duxelle of mushrooms that I've put in between the rice, using that food stacker again. And here's the fish. And the last step, of course, as always, is to coat it with our special sauce that we've made. So, as always the same thing. You can see the tinge. There's a slight red tinge on this sauce, and this is particular for this kind of sauce. So I'm going to leave the for once. I don't know why, but I'm going to leave the rice, or maybe a little bit of sauce, and I can't resist it. It's amazing. Okay, and from here you can put a little bit of parsley, which was part of the recipe. So again, not too much. And and we got here is the fish fillet called the Dugléré technique, style, which is with the tomato. So it's a sauce vin blanc, basically the same as always. The white wine sauce for fish, with an addition of freshly chopped tomatoes. So what I wanted to finish on really today is to kind of give you a bit of a wrap up on that series, because this is the end of the series. That was the kind of advanced level. As you can see, it's got a lot of things to do. But doing these techniques, that's from a culinary school. I think that if I think of Escoffier technique, and if I think of this kind of technique that have you to make the sauce at the end, just after you've cooked the fish here, in my view, in my opinion, to be honest, having tested it, I think it doesn't really work in the sense that it takes too long to make the sauce. Okay, so I'm gonna try the sauce here. Oh, such a classic, this one. Oh man, sorry. No, it's really good. I mean, you can't deny it. I mean, the cream and that kind of light, fish stock in the background, but it's very subtle, very silky smooth. Can I actually? I'll take a bit of fish. Sorry, guys. That has to be the best sauce to go with fish. Such a simple classic. But anyway, sorry. So back to the what I was saying about the Escoffier story here. So in my view, Escoffier believes that when you make a sauce, instead of kind of doing it last minute, he always tends to prepare the sauce before. And I think in that scenario, what Escoffier would have said is that you need to have beforehand a very good fish stock that you've already made, that is already reduced to a glaze, and that is ready to be used. Like this, when your fish is ready, you may add a little bit of the cooking juices, but very quickly you can make your sauce, because you would have, for instance, some reduced cream on the side, you would have some reduced stock, and you won't spend as much time as I did here, because I think, in my view, the fish is a little bit overcooked. So my last advice on this is that if you make that recipe, the culinary technique, from the culinary schools in France, like this, make sure you really part cook your fish and then put it in the oven at about 50 degrees, about 100 degrees Celsius while you're making the sauce, because the reduction of the sauce, honestly, takes a long time. The only advice I can give as well, if you want to reduce quickly, take a very large bottom pan so that it can go fast. But that's all the advice I can give. Anyway, if you do it still, it's an excellent sauce to try at home. You will really learn something out of this with the filleting, the making, the reducing, and the fish fumet. It's a great exercise, and I hope you all enjoy that little fish series. Next week, we'll start something different, and we'll start afresh. So I hope to see you all then, and until then, take care. Bye-bye.